51-year-old Dodge pickup truck, W100 4x4 Power Wagon. This thing sat most of its life. In fact, 1983 was the last time this thing was registered and on the road. Parked in the trees, we dragged this thing out and got it running and driving again. We took this thing trailing, but it needs some love. And in fact, this thing, cold start, I mean, you don't get much better than that. Now, with that being said, that's a lot of sitting. It's a low mileage engine. We're looking at around 76,000 original miles. It is an absolute mess. And that exhaust sounds horrible. We mentioned in the last video, let's yank that engine out and let's do a budget cleanup refresh of the engine and the engine bay. Holy moly. Yeah, there is literally not an ounce of paint left on that engine. And we didn't rebuild this carburetor. I cannot believe this thing actually runs. It isn't happy though. And so with our budget refresh of everything, I bought the cheapest Amazon special 4-barrel 318 intake. We're gonna throw it on there and hopefully not only clean everything up, but actually wake this thing up a good bit too. Oh, we got some gas. I guess that's the good thing about cheap Amazon stuff. We can drill it out and modify it, or Dad can drill it out and modify it. Now we've got a good lifting point. Now we know we're in pretty good health on this thing. When we were trying to get this thing running, one thing that we did do was check compression, obviously. This thing had super good, very even compression. So we shouldn't have to get into major mechanicals, especially with lower mileage. It's just a lot of sitting. You'll notice we've completely lost all of the paint. Normally these things are so oiled and grimed up that they kind of protect it. and this one wasn't that oily and grimy, and so it obviously, the paint just from the condensation under that hood rusted, the engine rusted, and everything kind of fell off there. We have a few freeze plugs that need to be taken care of because they were dripping down on the engine. We just want to get a really good major cleanup and reseal. While we're in there, we'll check everything out. If it all looks good, it'll go back together. If stuff needs to be addressed, we'll address it while it's apart. But part of being budget friendly and doing this on a budget is don't fix what's not broken. A good cleanup will be really nice.
No, no, few. It's under the valve covers.
Holy moly.
That's good. Holy moly. Why does it look so bad? It's a little sludgy. As long as it falls on you, I'm good. Oh, mud dauber in the water jacket. Is that lip wear in the... Wow, that's really worn out.
What's amazing is how much play there is and just how much the timing can change. I mean, that's a few degrees of play and an already worn out cam.
Oh. I don't know if I can pull it. Have you seen how crusty it was?
Look at that.
A little bit.
Holy cow. Dad, I think we're figuring out why this thing was parked. This engine has some major... Why does the crank look so funky? Right. Look at the wear in the gear and look at the key. How did this thing... Okay, this thing ran really, really, really good for what we're finding. Wow, they're so cut. Careful, they're really sharp. Things are slap worn out. Oh my goodness. They all lifted. I'm worried about the bore in here.
Oh, it feels nice.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a cam that looked like that? Look at it. The bearings are perfect. Beautiful bearing surfaces, but man, the cam is just, look at it. What is going on here?
Right here, 915. It's a 9 thousandths over.
Gosh.
They're all over the place.
So 2 thousandths to 10 thousandths over wear. That's why some of them have massive lips. Oh my goodness. What's crazy is the fact that this thing only has 74,000 miles. 318's a great engine.
Not that one.
No. And it had some kind of catastrophic failure up front. This thing was driven really hard. I think had some major oil starvation issues. And obviously some oddball stuff going off. It looks like the whole dampener fell off the front at one point. I'm definitely feeling like we're learning more about this truck and why it ended up where it ended up. I think it had some major issues. It got cobbled back together and it just wasn't happy. And that's when it was sold. The gentleman purchased it, had it brought to us. So what we were told was he purchased it from a neighbor there in the neighborhood, drove it back, parked it, and that's where it stayed, where we've ended up finding the truck. Now, you know how we are. We don't like giving up on anything, but not only does it potentially, this thing has like 15 thousandths of crank in play, so it needs a bearing set. It's factory pistons, but it's crazy funky all in here, so it needs a cam, it needs a chain, which we already had a chain. We had planned on potentially doing a cam, but it needs pistons, and the biggest thing, it needs machine work, and that kind of kills your budget-friendly refresh, because that gets real expensive real quick. We've done a little talking and consideration. I think we have a plan. I think this right here is gonna be our plan. Now, we had considered actually pulling the 440 out of the Jaguar, because a big block would be pretty neat. I just don't think it makes sense for that truck. Plus, I wanna drive the Jaguar and do some burnouts. Now, this is another 318. It's low mileage, about 94,000 miles, so higher than that. Bought it from a local gentleman here that builds some really cool Dodges and does some Cummins swaps. So this got pulled out for that. Had a video of it running. It sounds super awesome. It looks really nice. It's actually got some paint on it, unlike the other one. But what's cool is it came with an extra MP435, bell housing, accessories, radiator. It was all $700. What's cool is this is the 410-4230 block, which is, if it had the X on the front, would be the race block, but I'm pretty sure, doing some research, it's a stout block and a super buildable one if for some reason we ever considered going that direction. And it's a factory 4-barrel, which is nice. A little bump in horsepower, a little better engine-y stuff going on. A little better engine. Just a little better stuff going on there versus that 2-barrel engine. So this should be a really nice upgrade. But we'll get the transmission pulled, we'll get it cleaned up really good. We'll replace it on the engine stand and start pulling it down a little bit, because we're gonna do a refresh just on a little bit better 318. Dad just mentioned it came with an Edelbrock carburetor, which is $360 something. No doubt we want to keep that brand new oil pump that we installed on this thing, and might as well put it in the new engine. Well, if you're on the hunt for a 4-speed swap, got an extra one. Let's get these valve covers pulled and see if this engine's a little happier than our other one. Good golly. It's like brand new. Wow. That's a good feeling. Oh. Wow. It's not often we get to work with stuff that is this clean. This will be perfect for the Power Wagon. And the reason it is this way, I feel like, is this came out of a forestry crew cab, first gen, and it was definitely well taken care of. Just the tiniest amount of in play, that is no issue, but it is definitely on its original timing chain, which we had planned on doing anyways. That is one happy little engine. I am super excited. I think with this one we continue cleaning up. It's obvious the rear main has definitely leaked a little bit. So I want to drop the pan, do that. We'll throw our brand new oil pump we have in there. Clean it up, we'll paint it, we'll reseal everything good. Drop our Amazon special intake on it, new timing chain, and throw this thing back in the truck. No more mess. Woo! Yup, that's an original. They don't get much sloppier than that. That is a way prettier crank. Wow, this engine is really nice. I am, again, so happy. This is gonna be awesome.
There you go. Want some of that?
Wow, that's kind of loose. We obviously didn't have any kind of oil starvation issues, so I think we were cutting it close though. Good bit of leaking back here. Yep, and that's why. To access the rear main, we'll pull this last main cap. This also gives a good time to inspect some of our bearings. Oh yeah, you can see where it's been leaking past it a long time. Wow, bearing's pretty though. Crank is perfect. Check all of our connecting rods while we're in here. They feel super good. So this one does have a metal core, and normally we'd run a screw in there and I would pull it out, but what we're gonna use is this big straight pick. I'll put some good pressure on it and maybe even tap it while Dad turns the crank here, and hopefully that'll help start walking this thing out where I can grab it with some pliers. It's funny, once it went, it went. Whew. Thing is hard as a rock. And that is why it was leaking so bad. A little oil on our crank here. Then I am gonna put some RTV on the outside edge, just to create a little bit of an extra seal. Make sure we put it back in the correct direction, and Dad can spin again and we'll work it in. All right. These to 85. Now we're going to rotate until we are TDC, top dead center, on our #1 cylinder here on our compression stroke, meaning both our cam lobes are away and both valves are completely closed. We come up, there is our mark. Funny, look how much the little telltale for the timing has been rubbed. Here's our new Cloys double roller heavy duty timing set we picked up off of Summit. We go back on with our eccentric here. That was my hand. Sweet. Now we're sliding the harmonic balancer on, so we make sure our seal up front is centered up good. And one thing to remember is a lot of these bolt holes actually run into the water jackets, and so you need to put on a Type 2 non-hardening gasket sealant. Don't want to forget the oil filter base gasket here. Freeze plugs look just phenomenal on this thing, except for some reason this one right here above the starter, which is the same exact one that failed on the engine that was in the truck. So must be something common going on there. So we want to get that replaced before we put it all back together. Everything else is nice and accessible even once it's in the truck, but they look beautiful. Really not bad. This must be where a little goop collects. These water passageways really are clean. Although the combustion chambers do look really nice, this thing definitely wasn't burning any oil. It wouldn't make sense to not do the valve stem seals while we're here. So we're just gonna take and break loose and pull our rocker assemblies off. And you wanna be careful if you get yanking these out one at a time, you can actually break this rocker arm. Now we'll use our compression gauge fitting. This will allow us to put pressure on the valves. Once you put pressure on it, take a socket like so, and this will jar our keepers loose. This is my least favorite valve spring tool. If you use one of these, you know what I'm talking about, but it's the easiest way to go about pulling these. Take the pressure off the spring. Keepers come out. You sure? That one is yellow. Original part number, and is just about hard as a rock. This one's nice and pliable. What can happen is, and we've had them in the past, these things break apart, end up making their way down. And we had one car that had actually made it through the screen and stopped the oil pump. So not only could you potentially leak oil here, but you could also hurt other things. I like to take this and just tap, make sure they've seated well. So we get tired of trying to use that garbage tool, and this is only going to be Mopar specific, but 20 minutes to save us an hour plus on each valve job. Here's our fancy little Mopar doohickey valve stem tool we created. This is actually the rocker tube off of the junk motor we didn't need anyways. This is a very nice Lunati rod that had some slight issues, that's why it was removed. Welded on a little piece of metal here. Now we can bolt this on. And that should make life a whole lot easier. Yeah. That's just a little easier. Just hard as a rock. We also want to inspect, make sure our valve is nice and tight. The stem and everything looks super nice. This just drops right back into place. Easy.
Can't get better than that. Like the old
We're ready to spray, and there's some folks that might get upset that we're not going back with the original color. What we actually decided to use is Chrysler Hemi Orange. It's not a Hemi, but in that light blue truck, I think this orange engine will look really good. So that's what we're gonna try. I guess we could always change it back to original blue down the road. When we're going back on with the balancer, one thing you don't want to forget, take some of your RTV and push it down in the slot here for your dowel. Otherwise, oil will walk past it and you'll get what looks like a front main leak around your bolt here. What's the pants are for? Anyone else's wives get upset that your pants are dirty the week that you buy them? Intake time. $130 Amazon special air gap intake, and I don't know, it's okay. It's pretty decent looking. I mean, for 130 bucks, factory and aftermarket ones were well more expensive than this thing. This was the most inexpensive option. I hope to put it on the original engine, but obviously it did not work out. We'll see how it goes on here. It's angled different than you should think it should be too. Got any started?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I'm thinking about it though.
That's the worst fitting intake ever. Ever. We have fought this thing for about 20 minutes now and have 2 bolts started. What's cool is that all but 4 of the bolts actually have to have sealant on them because they're holes down into the oil jacket. So the ones we put in have to come back out. Wow, okay. Cheap does not always, what we're gonna do, the angles are just incorrect a little bit and they're not quite in the right spot. So we're just gonna kind of waller the holes a little bit, I guess, to try to get it to all go on there. Yeah, cheap, bit us in the butt. Perfect. They all ran down. Should be good enough to seal everything up. You'll probably notice these extra holes. I guess this is a dual pattern intake, so we've got little plugs we'll knock in after we put the valve covers on. Maybe try and work on the intake is just set to tight. Valve covers, surprisingly the least expensive aftermarket valve covers we could find for this were these old Mickey Thompsons that somebody already took the time to restore, which is nice. That helps us out a little bit. Oh yeah, this thing is starting to take shape. That's amazing.
Yeah, it'd have been tough to do that on the floor, huh?
Before going back in with the engine, it would not make sense to not go ahead and clean the engine bay up. I splurged a little bit and I bought new of these because they've disintegrated, and that will make a huge difference in here. All of the harness is super nice. None of it's brittle or anything. We'll get some degreaser, pressure wash everything really good. And then any rust, everything under here for the most part is surface rust. Any rust we see, we'll treat with a rust converter so it takes care of all that. I think it'll make everything look really nice in here at the same time. But I kind of want to just strip everything down, get it cleaned up really well. We'll start piecing it back together and we'll be ready to go back in with the engine. Without the automatic transmission, we no longer need that transmission cooler. That is neat. Has to have been a factory option. Original brackets and everything. That is a big old cooler. Still didn't save that automatic. I guess it's perfect timing while we're in here and this thing's drying off to knock some of these dents out. it actually cleaned up in here surprisingly well. A lot of paint still here in the engine bay, on the wheel wells, on the firewall, and it all looks really good with the exception of some surface rust here on the frame, back here in this crevice. Thank goodness it's not completely rusted through. What an odd design they did there. But what we're going to do now is go over everything with a rust fix. We've used this on a lot of floorboards. Different things that you want to treat rust, take care of it, but still have the original paint. So this is pretty cool. It lays on clear, and on painted surfaces, it stays clear, but on the rust, once it is completely treated, it will actually turn it black. So it will take care of all of our surface rust and everything in here, keep this thing going for many years down the road, and still hopefully look really nice. Slight clear coat, it really does intensify that blue paint. Man, that is pretty. Maybe we should clear the whole truck. Why is this thing so tall? You know they're not my favorite just because of how well they fit most of the time. There's a ton of room in there. And this truck didn't have a radiator in it when we got it. We stuck a Ford one in there, kind of zip tied it in for now. And I bought an inexpensive, actually the cheapest aluminum radiator we can pick up for this thing. And it actually looks really nice. Didn't I say something about how these things fit? You know what? That engine came with a radiator. Would you look at that? What's cool with this radiator is we can install a factory shroud with that 18-inch, 18.5-inch Mopar Performance fan blade. Was ordered new with this truck. Now it's time for headers, and this is what we decided to go with. I think this will work out nice. This is just center dump, some shorty headers, stainless. It was the cheapest thing we were able to find. They look pretty nice. Hopefully they fit okay. And this will center dump. We've got plenty of room down in there in the center. So this should work out best for our application. One thing you don't want to forget is put that type 2 sealant here on those threads, because these are actually drilled into the water jacket. Make sure we get all those fingerprints off or they will burn in. This thing just drank 3 gallons like it was nothing. I don't know about y'all, but I'm about ready to hear this thing run. I guess we'll find out if it turns over again first, and we'll see if it'll fire off. Hopefully our timing's close-ish. Turns over and it sounds like it's straight wide open headers. Check fire. Will you cut it over for me real quick, please, Dad? Do it one more time. It fired as soon as you cut the key off. The coil must be going bad. Or I mean, not the coil, but the ignition switch, because it fires when you let it off. It should be the opposite with if the ballast was bad. I guess it could be that new computer we put in there. See if it'll fire up now. We did check and verify by pulling that #1 spark plug, looked down at our cylinder, got this thing up to TDC, and realized we were actually 1 spark plug wire off, and that was going from that distributor to the cap that was on this one, and just a few things got mixed up. So we're pretty close on our timing now. Let's see if this thing will fire up. There she goes! So quiet and so happy now. What do you think? Little oil pressure. There you go. I just had an air bubble in it. Let's do on the fire. We're just about there, but I decided to kind of splurge a little bit on this one. We don't normally do this on mini vehicles, but something we're gonna probably take trailing. I'm not too big into mudding, but take trailing, get out and play in the snow, rainy weather and stuff. It'd be nice to protect the engine, and the engine bay we have now cleaned up. And so I bought all of the original splash shields for this thing. It was only a little over 100 bucks for everything. The upper radiator, lower radiator, and wheel well splash shields came with all new clips, and we'll get this put into place. I think it should make a big difference under here. You can see this thing is perforated for different radiator options. So this side is good and stays. This side, I need to take and clean this up. That's what I'm talking about. I guess we need a throttle handle. Straight back? That's good. just a completely different engine bay. Really, really pleased with how this thing turned out. I think the rust proof, I think the rust converter and everything actually kind of sharpened everything up in here, and I don't know, maybe we should clear coat this entire truck. But for now, the engine bay, I think, is definitely a massive, massive difference for the budget that we were able to do everything on. We didn't go extremely crazy, and we tried to get the least expensive of the things that we did put in here. I wanted to kind of give you a good cost breakdown so you knew where we were at with everything. You know, the engine ended up being really rough. Now, the thing is you can buy a rebuild kit, you can buy pistons, you can buy a crank, you can buy a cam. At that point, you're doing machine work, and it would just get insane on something like that original 2-barrel 318 74, you know, a smog down low horsepower engine. We were able to purchase this one, a little bit newer, 318 4-barrel, still a smogger, but much better, especially the engine code that it is. It's a good one to potentially build down the road. But for now, power steering, power brake, granny low, 4-wheel drive. I think just a stock, original cam, cleaned up little engine. We'll be super, super happy in this truck. And we paid $700 for that engine. Now, the entire trans swap, which we had previously gotten on a parts truck, we could have obviously used it here, but that's just how things work out. But the bell housing, flywheel, clutch, transmission, we figure about $350. So that puts us $350 into the engine, but not just the engine, the radiator, the fan shroud, the carburetor, some hoses, some brackets. So that definitely saved us a huge amount there. And deals like that can be found on Marketplace from time to time, and that's kind of what it's all about. Scrounging around, finding a good deal, and building your hot rods. The intake we paid $135 for on Amazon after tax. The headers were $129. The water pump cost us $38. The timing set cost us $37. Those were both purchased from Summit. The gasket set $89, also Summit. And the freeze plug we paid 91 cents for. We spent about $24 on the engine paint, putting us to, valve covers, which surprising were the cheapest that we found. They had already been restored, which is super cool. And I think it fits that engine and ties everything in very nicely. Were $150. So all of that said, that was $952.91. But there's a few things you could do without. Obviously, you could use the original valve covers, you could use the original manifolds, and you could use the original intake, which would bring us down to $531 or $538.91. And you could have everything refreshed very nicely for even cheaper than we decided to do. Splash guards, and that's basically it. So for less than $1,000, kind of splurged a little bit, but I think we definitely did this truck justice. The clear to me looks really good. I know some people would like to see it painted, but that paint is beautiful. That original blue paint, you could never recreate that, and it's a pretty cool little setup. Now for our next episode, you probably noticed the big box in the seat there. That is actually a Mustang fuel tank. So what we're gonna do is, you cannot buy a gas tank for these trucks for the in-cab. It'd be nice to get out of there anyways for safety and for just, having a fuel tank behind you. So we're gonna pull the bed, clean everything up back there, and then we're gonna take and make a custom rear fuel tank for this thing. We've got exhaust for this. We're gonna build a custom exhaust out, get it all out the back of the truck. And so that's what we got to look forward to in our next episode, is getting this thing truly ready to be driven back down the road. But we really do hope you all have enjoyed to this point. If you have, be sure to subscribe button, notification bell to keep up with our future uploads on this rebuild and our other rebuilds and rescues. And if you have been a part of the channel, we do appreciate it so incredibly much. We get to bring stuff like this back to life because of each and every one of you. So thank you. Peace out, and catch you all on the flip side.